This is Good Morning Mumbai, and you're with Hrishi K.
Radio 1.
Well, really, if you're a football fan, there's no escaping him. John Dykes is over from the UK. John, welcome to the show.
Well, it's lovely to be here, Hrishi. Thank you very much. It's a lovely morning, by the way.
It is, and the sunlight is streaming through the window, which is more than what we can ask for when you're cooped up in studios, right?
Or when you just left England in the driving rain and cold, as I did the other day, yeah.
That too, my friend. Well, wonderful that you stopped by the DY Patil Stadium last night, spent some time with the broadcasting team too, and Mumbai took on Goa. Goalless draw, of course, but some exciting moments. That must have been a good one.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the lovely thing was, having watched it from a distance, I've been watching it over there in England, and obviously I know a lot about the tournament. To see it up close, I had a suspicion that India was embracing the Indian Super League, and they've done so. What I also suspected was the staging of it was going to be fantastic, and I was really impressed by that. You know, I spoke to Peter Reid, who's managing your team here in Mumbai, and he was really impressed by everywhere he's been, the way it's being run. But I also was kind of thinking, what's the quality of the play going to be like? Now, as we saw last night, there's no shortage of talent from the international players. I think there's some talented local players. They're just not quite scoring the goals. And the thing about that is it's making for some decent games, because I saw a game in Kolkata the other night. There was this incredible game down at the Salt Lake Stadium there when they took on Chennai, which was as good a 0-0 as I've ever seen. But, you know, we all like a goal, don't we? And last night, you know, we were going, well, come on, there's got to be a goal. And it was one of those games where they hit the woodwork and it just wouldn't go in. So there you go, that's football.
Yeah. And Anelka doesn't score again.
he did everything, but I mean, the guy's really giving it all. I was really impressed by Anelka. I mean, I think you're really lucky, if you think about it, in this country to have a player like him. When you look at his pedigree, you look at his CV, look at where he's been, and the fact that he's obviously really putting an effort in. And the guys I spoke to on the Mumbai City coaching staff have been just full of praise for his attitude. So he's really, really embracing it, I think.
And Peter Reid, I mean, are you guys mates from his Everton days? And do you manage to catch up for a lunch or a dinner now and then?
Look, I'm not as old as Reid, I'll tell you that much. Okay. There's a few grey hairs here, but no, he is absolutely wonderful. He's one of my favourite people in football, Peter. And we go back a long time. In fact, actually, I was somebody who watched Peter playing when he went to World Cups and when he did all he did in England. And I was lucky enough when Peter was when he finished managing at Sunderland and he finished there, and he was at a bit of a he was free for a weekend. We took him out to Singapore when I was broadcasting with ESPN Star Sports, and he came and did a couple of weekends, worked with us on our Premier League Cup. He came and I cajoled him into playing for my little Sunday League team, and he came and had a game with us, and we had a lot of fun. And ever since then, he's just been one of my favourite guys, because as you can see, when he gets in a TV studio, his arms wave everywhere and he gets all expressive, and as you'll know in the media, that's just gold. You want someone like that. Exactly. And he's also just a great guy. He makes time for the guys at Star Sports, who always come across and talk, and he's just what you need in this industry, really.
Mm-hmm. A little birdie tells me that you did a bit of DJing in your school or your college days. Is that true? Yeah,
way back when. Yeah, when I first went to uni in England, I did two things. Where I was at university was next to the West Midlands Arts Centre, so we had a lot of bands coming around, and I'm into my music, and I did a sort of an alternative music show back then, full of some really dodgy sort of Bauhaus and goth stuff, and indie music and what have you. And it was cool because we got to interview bands. When I remember when the Smiths did their first tour, they stopped by, and we caught up with them, and you had bands coming by all the time. So yeah, I did that. I've always done sport, and I've always played sport, but I've had this start to my career when I did a lot of entertainment. So when I was in Hong Kong, for example, even though I started out writing football, within a year or two, I was writing entertainment and going to Hollywood on movie junkets and stuff like that. So it's been fun to have that sort of side of it as well.
We're going to play some Men at Work and Who Can It Be Now, going back to the classics, and post the song. We're going to come back and talk what else but football. It's John Dykes in studio. Men at Work, Who Can It Be Now? Well, I'll tell you who is here now in studio is John Dykes. Legendary football broadcaster. I mean, the moment people got wind of the fact that he's going to be in studio today, the fans already started tweeting in, saying John in studio and stuff. Listen, you guys are welcome to ask any questions or react to this interview. It's at HRISHIKAY on Twitter. and John's at John Dykes UK, and we're the Radio 1 Mumbai Facebook page, so you can even inbox on Facebook or one space your query and name to 53650. Happy to bring it up with John. I follow your blog pretty closely, the Super Sports blog. And you were putting out your team thus far for the Barclays Premier League, and you put it so beautifully, and you said, other than Chelsea, the big boys are just not getting it right.
Well, you're right there, yeah. It's amazing. If you think about it, if we'd done that at this stage of last season, you'd have had Aaron Ramsey of Arsenal in there, you'd have had Suarez in there, you'd have had a pretty rich selection of players. But you sit down right now and look at who's performed and who hasn't performed, and I think really it sums up the league as a whole. It's more to do with who hasn't. Chelsea are great, don't get me wrong. I mean, they're solid, they're strong, they look like they've got an answer for every situation. But the rest of the guys that should be challenging them are all, they're taking it turns to shoot themselves in the foot, aren't they? Except from Southampton, who I think are magnificent. I think they're just lovely. I like a story like that. But I sat down and I thought, because you see, the problem with doing what I do and genuinely being neutral, I don't have a Premier League team, is that everyone assumes you do, or they project a team onto you. So if I start saying, well, I've got 6 Chelsea players in my team of the season, well, there they go. He's a Chelsea man or what have you. So, that's everyone's favourite game, trying to figure out if you support anyone, because everyone sees it through the eyes of being a fan. But you honestly tell me whether there's any Liverpool players who would get into it for you right now. I think Sterling might be the closest to it. Manchester United, well,
maybe Di Maria.
Di Maria, maybe 4 games ago. Maybe 4 games. You know what I mean? Yeah, right. So that's it. I really hope that by January things are a little bit different, or maybe a little bit later.
And January is a very, very interesting month. I mean, you reckon that as far as the goal is concerned, I mean, right now there's Courtois. There's a lot of talk of Czech perhaps moving. What do you think is really going to happen?
Well, I think January's never a good time to sell or buy. Really, I mean, it tends to be a desperation time. So if you look at Czech would move because he wants to play. And that tends to be what happens. You look at Mata last year. Mata moved because he wanted to go to the World Cup.
Yep.
And there's a tradition of that. So, sometimes you see a club get a player and you go, well, I wouldn't have called that. It happens because the player's available. The club goes, look, he's just too good not to get. And that happens. I think what January will mean to me is I hope Southampton don't get too badly asset stripped. But I don't think they will, because they don't need to sell. They're still very much in profit after selling their players in the summer, even though they bought those players. They might lose a guy called Schneiderlin, who's one of the best, on stats, one of the best midfielders in Europe over the last 2 seasons. But I think what's interesting for me is Manchester United. Dare they go again? It looks like they have to defensively. So, I mean, his owner's going to look at it and say, right, you go into January, conceivably maybe not even in the top 4, and yet you're asking us to get the checkbook out again. That's going to be a test for them, I think.
Just when everybody thought that Van Gaal was manna from heaven, and Moyes had got it all.
Well, he may turn out to be. He may turn out to be, because Van Gaal is a
slow starter, isn't he? Yeah.
He said he's a slow starter. Yeah. I think he's hamstrung to a degree by the squad. But boy, you can't tell me that even though he was preoccupied with the Dutch at the World Cup, he didn't have time to look at that squad roster and go, "We need some defenders." Yeah, because, he's crippled. Now they've got Daley Blind injured. They've got 9 first-teamers out. And even if you get Carrick back, you need Carrick to get back into midfield, not centre-half. So they've got a few problems, because he's a guy who has a clear-cut coaching tactical vision. He wants his players to execute in a certain way. But if you don't have the players to do that, then you have to be a little bit more pragmatic. And I suspect that when he looks back on it, he might just say to himself, when we were winning against Leicester, there's no way we should be letting 5 goals in. When we were in charge of such and such a game, we should have been a little bit more sensitive.
Or 2 games ago, you look at the defensive line. Yeah. I know that Rojo was stretchered off, and there was a sending off and things like that. But it wasn't even a defensive line.
No. And that's crazy, because he's got people around him who know this league. He's got people around him who say, "Hang on a minute, let's be a little bit more solid right now." I don't know. I mean, but you got to trust him. His CV tells you that, and he's a man who's got the courage of his own convictions. So I think it's one of the most fascinating stories I've known for years.
So is it 3 months or 3 years? Some people say he said, "Give me 3 months." Some people say he was misquoted. He said, "Give me 3 years."
I would say he's got 1 season. Because you imagine this, if that side doesn't make it into Champions League football for next season, that will impact some of the players he's already brought in. So then he has an interesting summer.
It's Shania Twain. I'm going to get you good. Post us some messages and we're back with John Dykes and Natasha, who's co-producer, is going to come in and do some pictures up on Facebook and Twitter. You guys. John Dykes is in studio. We're talking football and a whole lot more. For those of you who just tuned in, you missed out on the part when you talked about his DJing days in college. Okay. And some fabulous tweets going out. Rahul says, on the world on live sports broadcasting, John Dykes and the team of gods. Just outstanding privilege to hear him on radio. Thanks very much for that, Rahul. Vijay Venkatesh, hi, how are you? Glad you liked Who Can It Be Now? With a Brit in studio, says not Roger Ebert. You should be playing some classic Brit rock. Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, at least a song by Blur. Will do. It's not a bad idea at all. Kavita, I understand 7 languages, but I'm completely lost when you speak football.
Well, I'm here to interpret.
Yeah, that's what he's here for. Hi, Arjun Siva. What's up? Thank you all, you guys. Keep the messages coming and keep shouting out. Okay, there's something interesting that you're doing here in December, the event. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's called BPL Live, and it's an interactive fan experience, a fan park experience, but a bit more than that. And it's the second time it will have happened. So what it is we take the essence of the Barclays Premier League and we take it overseas to an audience to give them an opportunity to really get as close to the Barclays Premier League experience as possible. We did it in Johannesburg, South Africa last year. It was a massive success. So effectively what we're doing is we're coming out here on the 13th and 14th of December, and we're hanging the whole weekend off effectively the Manchester United-Liverpool game, which is being played on the 14th. So what we do is we go down to the MRDA complex, and we'll have a venue there, and I think we can get something like 12,000 fans a day through it. So what happens is we have these stages, and I'll be on stage, and I'll have some Premier League legends like Peter Schmeichel and Robbie Fowler with me.
Wow.
We'll be showing games. So we'll be showing both Barclays Premier League games on the Saturday and the Sunday, but we'll also be showing the Indian Super League semi-finals as well. So we'll have a couple of big screens up there. But as far as the Premier League experience is concerned, we bring the actual trophy as well, so fans can get close to the trophy. We bring these interactive elements where you can learn about your clubs, you can have pictures taken, green screen, so it looks as if you've lifted the trophy. We can get you into skills zones where you can work on testing out your skills. We have community coaches coming over from the Premier League who do coaching courses. Premier League clubs themselves will be in attendance, and they'll come over here and they will bring whatever they bring to it. I know that, for example, one of them, Crystal Palace, are out here doing a talent search in the days leading up to that weekend, and they'll be looking to do their finals on our little mini pitch there. So it's an awful lot of fun. Basically, fans come in, it's all free, it's first come, first served.
That is amazing. It's just the doors are open. Yeah?
It'll be publicized, you'll know where to go, but it's going to be busy, I can tell you that much. And the beautiful thing about it is we'll be on stage, we'll be showing you football, we'll be interacting as much as possible, and it's as it's as close as you could get to a Barclays Premier League experience without actually jumping on a plane and flying up to England.
I've got a question for you. How much preparation goes into each show of football today, for example? I mean, is there still a knot in the stomach? How much reading do you do? How much prep do you do before going into a show? Just a day in the life of John Dykes.
It's it's prep. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you a week in the life. So what I do is I do the weekends. That's my real work. So my working week starts on a Friday in terms of broadcasting, with football day on a Friday, which sets up the weekend. So that means that my working week effectively starts on a Wednesday when we start having pre-production meetings. So I'll be talking to the producers about the weekends. What's the theme for Saturday's game? What's the theme for Sundays? What sort of an opener do we want to do? What are we going to be cutting? What sort of content do we want? Then the Friday show, obviously, it's a little bit more basic in that we just know what it's going to be. It's going to be press conferences, it's going to be stats, it's going to be previewing the weekend. So, to answer your question, a show like Wednesday, for example. Now, I do a Wednesday football today with the journalists in which we really get into the issues and what have you. That's, again, a sort of a Monday chat, a Tuesday prep, about 2 or 3 hours serious reading and preparation. And then when we get in there, I'll get in 3 or 4 hours ahead of the show and really refine how we're going to do the show and get it on air, because as you know, in this business you can go on air and wing it, but there's no substitute for being ready for what you're going to do. And you owe it to the viewer. I mean, I do. I haven't played professional football. I don't have to sit there and explain why that corner was a good corner, but I've got no excuse for not knowing who's top of the table or how many points they've got or who's injured or not. I mean, that's just stuff you need to bring to the party, and it's a degree of professionalism that I think that the audience deserves.
Well, I was looking at the World Cup television broadcast here, and subsequently some other leagues, and now even the tennis league. Really, some Indian presenters could take a leaf out of your book. You're absolutely correct.
Well, I'm never here to sort of say whether anyone's any good or any bad. I do it the way that I think. I grew up being someone who listened to sport non-stop. I played sport non-stop myself. It's just my life, really. I was at one of those schools where that's what you did. And then I also found myself gravitating towards, huddling up, because back when I first went to live in Hong Kong at a time when, you couldn't get much Premier League coverage around Asia. So I was listening to the radio, and I was listening to those great BBC radio broadcasters, and, I guess subconsciously you try and learn as much as you can from that. And then, you watch all the TV that you do, and you try and figure out what works. So, if anyone out there wants to do it, I think you just have to absolutely try and learn from the best, and that's the way to do it.
Yeah, keep watching, keep listening. It's the Gorillas 2000. At 9:25, John Dykes in studio. 9:28, the broadcaster from the UK is here. As far as football is concerned, really the last word, John Dykes. Wayne Rooney, 100 caps. Yeah, that's a big one. So let's move from club football into, international football.
Okay.
A lot of people would argue that he hasn't lived up to his potential. I mean, we look at early Rooney in the Everton days, and then eventually, come moving to Manchester United. You would expect, him to be a Messi or a Ronaldo, but, still darn good. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, you put it really well there, Hrishi. I mean, his potential was fantastic. I remember one of my favourite people to have worked with ever was Sir Bobby Robson, the most enthusiastic, animated, genuine football people I've ever come across. And he said to me right from an early age, he was working with us, and he said, "This kid, Rooney," he said, he's the best thing that I've seen in generations. He was going back to the sort of Bobby Charlton days and what have you. So he said this kid is going to be quite something. Now, Wayne is going to end up smashing all of the records for England. Goals, appearances, everything. He will do so. He's going to end up breaking all sorts of Premier League records as well. But it's interesting, you're quite right. I think you have to qualify it by saying he's not reached Ronaldo, Messi status, because he is really good. Wayne is really good. Wayne has done some of the best things the Premier League has seen. You look at his overhead volley, you look at some of the goals he scored, you look at the numbers he's putting together, you look at what he's done for England occasionally. I think the biggest criticism for him would be his performances for England haven't always lived up to what he could possibly be. But then again, you might say that for one or two of his, competitors at the very top of the game. You'd probably also argue that he hasn't quite done it on the European stage, obviously, as well as the likes of Ronaldo, Messi, and even people like Zlatan, the really good players. But I don't know. I just think we over-scrutinise it a little bit. I think Wayne Rooney is one of the best players that I've seen, and I think he is a player who, if he can keep himself physically in good shape, I think Sir Alex Ferguson was concerned towards the end of his time there that Wayne wasn't taking care of himself as well as he should have done. But if you look at Wayne ever since the World Cup last summer, okay, England might not have done well, but Wayne looked lean and he looked fit. And I watched him on his 100th cap the other night, and he looked sparky and sprightly and lively. And I've got a lot of time for Wayne. I think he's a great player.
Sorry, indulge me, Manchester United fan here. Fellaini, he was given up as a hopeless case, and he seems to be doing some interesting things. Yeah,
well, I think the problem with he's doing some interesting. Ask Joe Allen how interesting the elbow was the other day. I don't know, and I just saw it on a Vine or something like that. I didn't watch the game myself, but he's a big, gangly guy who puts his knees and elbows around, and he does tend to end up with a bit of connection with opposition players. The only problem I think with Fellaini is this. I think he serves a very good purpose in a Premier League side that looks to try and get him up near the opposition box to disrupt, to cause a bit of trouble, to put himself about physically. I don't know if he's quite cute enough to come and receive the ball off the defenders and play through midfield. I don't know if he's quite that kind of a player. So as a result, I'm not sure how he fits with United. He came in and he put in a great shift against Chelsea, in that game, and he was obviously a player that they wanted to play against Manchester City, but I think there are still reservations. I think he's going to probably be a player who moves in January. And I think that's been set up for some time now.
Yeah, well, we're going to come back, and the Arsenal fans will have me for breakfast if I just end up talking about my favorite team. So I'm going to come back and talk about that. Pearl Jam fan, what song can I play you?
Oh, wow. Okay, yes. And I'll just tell you, when I was doing entertainment in Hong Kong, I went and covered the VMAs once in Los Angeles. And on the same bill in Los Angeles, I was lucky enough to see Guns N' Roses, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, and many, many more. And I've got to say, when Pearl Jam played live, it rocked. And so that's a pretty happy memory.
There we go. Eddie Vedder's Stone Goes Out on the Boys. It's Alive. Back with John Dykes post song. Don't go anywhere. It's 9:32. We're going to put up more pictures of him at HRISHIKAY. Going to tag his handle, which is John Dykes UK. One space your query and name to 53650 if you want any questions brought up. Pearl Jam Alive. John Dykes just talking about his love for rock music and actually catching these guys live. God, living the dream. Okay, let's talk Arsenal now. Always conservative, but I don't know whether you really.
Sorry, who's conservative?
I'm just thinking. Again, I don't know whether I'm actually quoting you on this, but I remember reading somewhere about you saying that perhaps Ozil's time could be up and he might be thinking of moving. Is that in his head?
With respect, I don't think it was me, but I do wonder. I do wonder quite where the future lies, because if I remember rightly, I read the other day that his injury's going to take a little bit longer to clear up now, so we're not going to see Ozil back in action for quite a while. I think it's a bit unfortunate with Ozil, because he hit the ground running. He was part of an exciting team. But generally speaking, since then he's been part of a team that again looks fun going forwards, but just doesn't have the substance to it. And the thing with Arsenal is I always want Arsenal to do well. I love the way Arsenal play. I think, back in the days of Thierry Henry especially, when you saw them go to Europe and really take on the best teams in Europe, take on the likes of, Milan and perform and score goals and be really exciting. And it was such a shame they didn't win the Champions League. It was such a shame. Had they done that, you'd have said that would have been a deserved result for them. But now, they're finishing second in their group on a regular basis. They're just off the pace, in a way that's a little frustrating.
Here's my question to you. What if Bayern Munich comes in the next transfer window and throws obscene amounts of money? Will Ozil go?
Well, I don't know if they would, to be honest with you. I don't know quite where Ozil's standing is right now, in terms of his numbers are always good. I think he gets a bad press unnecessarily. Whenever he plays, whenever he has a run in a team, his stats are good. He creates goals, he assists, he gets goals. So there's no problem with that. I think what it might be is that within the English game, if you are off your game, and it's ruthless, our league, and that's why our league is special. I mean, I never want to get involved in these debates about what's the best league, because I think, to be honest with you, there are so many different criteria. If you look at the top teams in the top leagues, you might argue success in the Champions League determines whether you're a good league or not. At the moment, I would say actually that the best English clubs have struggled a bit this season in the Champions League. But I think when we talk about the best league, we talk about this ruthless competitiveness that runs from 1 to 20. And if you're a club or a player at one of the big clubs, and if you drop your standards just a tiny bit, then you're going to get caught. Then Hull or Crystal Palace or Stoke or whoever it is, they will beat you, because they will have a degree of competitiveness and they'll have quality of players that will beat you. And I think Ozil's fallen a little bit victim to that, because he's come in, it was all nice and easy when he first started out, but when things got a little bit tougher and maybe he went missing in 1 or 2 games, it's quite easy for the fans to point at him and go, well, you should be doing better than that. It's difficult. And I think also coming to play in a country where, you don't have a winter break, that finds a few people out as well.
But Arsene Wenger did apparently say in the Arsenal, annual general meeting that he was going to bring in perhaps a central defender in January. You think that could be Matt Hummels? Yeah,
I think anyone who buys Hummels is getting a great player.
Do they have the money for it?
Yeah, they've got the money. The thing about it is, and this has been a criticism of Arsene for so long, when you consider that he is able to call upon the services of Steve Bold. He chooses not to call upon the services of Tony Adams, but he's got lots of people out there in the media, from Lee Dixon to Nigel Winterburn, offering advice. And you don't have to be a former Arsenal defensive great to see that what they've needed in recent seasons is just a high-quality, proper defender. But as anyone who coaches football will tell you these days, they're a dying breed. There just aren't that many really high-quality, proper defenders out there. And, you look at some players who are kind of ball-playing centre-halves these days, whatever that may be, your David Luiz kind of character. And you even find someone like Mascherano doing as good a job as anybody as a central defender. It's surprising. Where are those big, strong, uncompromising, defend first and foremost guys? There aren't that many out there, but Arsenal could desperately do with one.
Messages and back with John Dykes, and we're going to head into the home stretch of the show. Don't go anywhere. Radio 1. Spectacular session talking football with John Dykes, and he really believes very passionately in the ISL. Tonight, there's lots of action happening, and you're going to be in the thick of it. Talk about that.
Well, I'll be watching tonight. I was lucky enough to be at a game last night. Tonight I'm going to be in a sports bar or an entertainment complex or whatever Smash is, but I've heard good things about it. And it's a really good game tonight, because you've got Calcutta in action again, and the atmosphere there is always fantastic. They're playing against North East United, who have been, for me, another team that's really caught the eye. You know what? The thing about this Hero Indian Super League is that it's got so much potential. What needed to happen was it needed to happen. It needed to get out there. And now that it is out there, and it's, I think, surpassed expectations. I mean, the guys at Star have done an amazing job in terms of staging it. That was the main thing. As I said earlier on, the infrastructure, the stadia, the facility, the whole buzz around the league is great. And we've been getting tweets about this, haven't we? About what it needs to do next.
Okay, so here's the question. Chang, the ID, the Twitter handle. John Dykes, does he feel that it's time there is a cap on the number of foreign players in the playing 11 in the ISL, like in the cricket IPL?
Okay, well, I think the way to answer that would be simplistically no. I think the next level for this is you look at the marquee players now, and you look at the international players, and they're doing a great job, because trust me, this is a really tough format in terms of the short form version. They're playing a lot of games in a little bit of time. They haven't got much time for training. They've just got to recover and play, travel and everything like that. So I think some of the players who've come are doing as well as they possibly can, but one or two of them are towards the end of their careers. It would seem to me that inevitably the progression would be to bring in slightly younger, better caliber international players, but at the same time, the fact that the local Indian players are learning every single day from being around these guys should lead to an improvement in their standards. You look at the work that the coaches are doing with them on finishing, on composure, on the stuff that they've maybe lacked. I think by the time that we get to the next staging of this tournament, then hopefully you'll find that the standard of the Indian players will have increased, plus maybe the quality of the international players. Because trust me, these guys who've been involved in this Indian Super League will go back around the world. They'll say, hey, that's a good competition, a great country, there's a great passion for it there. So they'll do the work that's invaluable. They'll put it out there, which means it'll be that much easier for the organisers to get better players in. So if you get a better caliber of foreign player coming in, if the Indians have raised their standard, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm looking at I saw this fellow called Sandesh Jingan playing for Kerala, who really was impressive for me. You've got the guys that we've known about already, like Subrata Pal here.
Last night he was spectacular, wasn't he? Yeah.
After I think he's grown into the tournament great. Defenders like Gumanji Singh, I like him very much. There's a guy called Chowdhury I've been impressed with. Chakraborty has been very good. So I just think it's at the cutting edge of the pitch. You've got Subhash here who's getting in great places and just needs that little bit of quality. Haven't seen enough of Said Nabi. I think he got injured, which was a shame. But I know that India has the players, and I think it's just taking them on to the next level. So to answer the question, long-windedly, I would keep the format the same. I would say that all that happens now is the next time this tournament is staged, you will see an already decent standard of play improved upon.
And the players themselves are really excited. I know this, the foreign players, and I'm talking about. I remember doing an interview with Juan Capdevilla, and he was just absolutely mesmerized by Indian culture, and it's also such a learning experience for them.
That's lovely. And one of the really nice things is I was talking to one of the coaches last night, and they were saying to me that by and large the players who've come here, they've had great careers. In many cases, they've won everything there is to win. They are after a life experience because, you and I are lucky. We know we're broadcasters and we're going to hopefully, carry on broadcasting throughout our careers. But these guys have to do an abrupt change in their lives. They've been sportsmen, they've done this, they've done that, and suddenly they get to a point in their careers where they go, well, what next? I want to see the world, and I want to learn things and open up my eyes. And they're in a privileged, comfortable financial position, but there are guys who want to come and play out here, want to be out here for the life experience. And when you get someone that along in your squad, it's fantastic, because you know that they're here for the right reasons.
Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. Here are people screaming out saying, play some Brit rock. I'm going one step further and saying I'm going to play John's personal favorites, and you got a taste of that with Pearl Jam. So an RHCP song that I can play for you. Yeah?
Cool, please.
Scottish, good for you?
Oh, yeah, man, I could give you 20 Chili Peppers songs, but this is one to just chill out to, and there's nothing better than this.
More John right after this. It's 9:51 in the morning. It's at John Dykes UK on Twitter, or at HRISHIKAY. Pictures of him up there. And radio1.mum is our Facebook page there too. RHCP, Scar Tissue, John Dykes talking football and a whole lot more. Talk about the family. I mean, you did say when all this American rock was going on, saying that, I'm not the regular guy from Old Blighty. And there's a reason for that, because work took you away so early. Yeah? Yeah,
that's right. I mean, people are assuming that I'm going to be a fully paid up Downton Abbey watching, Oasis listening, Brit overseas. But no, I left England when I was 17, pretty much. I went to live in Hong Kong. Mum and Dad went there. Dad was working there. I went out there, and once you go overseas, it opens your eyes, and you live a much more international experience. And I then stayed in Hong Kong for 12 great years, and I started my career there, you know, newspapers, TV, and what have you. And then I moved to Singapore in 1997. And then Singapore really was a big part of my life because I met my wife there, my kids were born there, and it's a wonderful place. And
two of
really
them, two kids? Yeah,
yeah, two
boy
girls.
and a girl?
Two girls.
Two girls. Oh,
yeah.
girls are lovely.
Yeah, I know. One's nearly 15 and the other's just turned 11, so... Yeah, wish me luck. So, anyway,
to beat up all the boys who come.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I'm British, and I'm proud of, you know, where I come from, and the Premier League is obviously my life, and that's why I'm in England. I was really lucky 5 years ago to get an invitation from the Premier League to go there and be part of this global channel. But I think it might surprise a few of your listeners to know that I don't appear on English TV. I've never been on English TV. No one in England knows who I am. I work out of England for an international channel, which is made available to broadcast partners of the Premier League. So guys like Star here in India, guys in Africa, Asia, wherever it may be, they can take this ready-made English language 24/7 HD channel and use it as their broadcast, as it were. So it's it's a template, if you will, content service. So curiously, you know, I live in England, but no one knows who I am. I don't have any kind of media.
Which actually could be an advantage.
It's kind of nice, yeah, because you know what they're like with their, they're like over there. Once those press get into you. But no, so I live this kind of strange international existence, and it's lovely. I'm here. I just jumped on a plane the other day and came to India, which is fantastic. I've got to jump on a plane something like 2 a.m. tonight and fly back to London and go straight into the studio and do a show. But I spent last summer in South Africa. I had a broadcaster there, took me down, and I did the World Cup in Johannesburg and broadcast to 50 countries across sub-Saharan Africa. But no, so as a result, no, my tastes are kind of international. My wife is a massive rock fan, and she likes sort of heavy stuff. I gravitate towards heavy rock and 90s stuff, and you know, I was lucky enough to see bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Chili Peppers play, but I love things like Audio Slave, and a band called Alter Bridge is my favorite right now. So we're big rock fans, and you know, one of the things about living in London, you are just surrounded by concerts, and I'm going to see Slash again for the third time in a few weeks' time, and he's just fantastic in concert. So it's really nice, yeah. So that's how I can live.
Even though your first concert ever was AC/DC,
that's right, yeah.
You've got to be a fan of Deep Purple. You did say that Purple was one of your favorite bands.
Yeah. Growing up in England, now that's a great English band. If you think about it, I mean, back in the 70s, you know, when I was my brother was a bass guitar player, and he played in a few bands, and he was into his rock music, so he's a little older than me. When I was growing up, we listened to bands like Led Zepp, Purple, Sabbath. You know, that was the sort of stuff that was on our turntable, and it was brilliant. But for me, Purple was the one. That was my entry-level rock music.
So, pick a Purple song.
I think there's, you know, again, like I said earlier with the Chili Peppers, I could give you 20, but as far as Purple is concerned, if you want an iconic song with an iconic guitar break and everything good about it, it's got to be Highway Star.
There we go, Highway Star. We're going to say bye-bye to John Dykes up ahead. Don't go anywhere. One last picture of him coming up at HRISHIKY on Twitter and Facebook.com/radio1.mo. Thank you guys for all your wonderful messages. Nachiket Desai, great to hear John Dykes, and even more surprised to know he likes Red Hot Chili Peppers and Pearl Jam. Sundar R, master presenter, John Dykes. Is there a provision to listen again to your entire conversation with John? I missed some parts of it as I entered office. Yeah, we'll actually put it up on our Facebook page and also YouTube it, and the link will be up on my Twitter feed if you follow me, and perhaps John will be kind enough to retweet it when we do put up the conversation. Too much love in one snap, especially for me, as I'm a big fan of both of you, following John in his career for long. So Sundar, thank you. Akhil Kedia is my lovely wife Chandrika's birthday. Happy birthday, Chandrika.
Happy birthday.
I hope you're enjoying all the football conversation. And Akhil also goes on to say, John is the best presenter. Thanks for getting him on Good Morning Mumbai. Ashwin R, brilliant to hear the best sports broadcast presenter I've ever heard on radio live. Adi Sins, John Dykes, awesome, go footy, absolutely. Good morning, Arjun Siva, thank you for shouting out. Let's talk about sports other than football. You know, you've done Wimbledon and US Open with Vijay Amritraj, you've done the Augusta Masters in golf, and meeting Michael Holding. Those must have been amazing aspects of your career.
Yeah, that Michael Holding thing. I mean, I'm a huge cricket fan, and I'm not just saying that because I grew up playing cricket. I mean, I wasn't particularly good at it, but I played a bit of school cricket. I played a bit of cricket when I went to Hong Kong, and you know, as someone who grew up watching cricket and absolutely loving it, when I got to work with guys, you know, like Michael Holding, because when I grew up, I used to run a bit, and I loved watching guys who could, you know, move as effortlessly and gracefully over the land.
He was like a gazelle when he
beautiful, yeah. So to meet him was wonderful, and to find out he was a wonderful guy as well was a real bonus. But then I worked with guys like, the legendary Sonu Gavaskar, and you know, guys like that. Wow, I mean, these are people you idolize growing up. So that was fantastic. And, I've been privileged because when I was working with ESPN Star, I got to cover, as you say, I got to go to Wimbledon's and US Opens, and I also got to do football and covered a couple of Champions Leagues. I did Formula One. So I've been lucky, and you get to meet these guys, and that's really the fun part, isn't it?
Before you sign off, just 3 tips that a good television presenter, lots of young people out there who probably want to be in your shoes. What would you give to them?
Wow, okay, 3 tips. Let me think. Do your work. There's no substitute for hard work. Know your stuff, learn your stuff. But also I think about the audience a little bit. It's not about you, it's about them. It's also not necessarily about you, it's about your guests. Now, a broadcast is about bringing the best out of the component parts of it. So, think about what the audience needs, think about how best to get it to them, and then do your best to make sure that you know your stuff and you're respectful. And I think the main thing about it is you put yourself in the shoes of someone listening or watching and what they want the most, what would really, they would enjoy the most, and that's what I try and do.
John Dykes, such a pleasure having you here, and we look forward to seeing you again. Have a good trip, a safe trip back home, and see you back here in December.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure.
We're going to have some messages and back. And up ahead, our International Men's Week special has Sasha Day Game giving dating tips. Yeah, all you men of the world, you can listen in. And Zaid Khan's in tomorrow. That is our interview of the day. John's already giving me a thumbs up. Incredible cricketer. Yeah?
Great cricketer. He caused England a lot of trouble over the years. And say hi for me. I really, really like that guy.
Lovely.